Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Expanding government and increasing spending at an alarming rate. That's what President Biden has done in his near 100 days in office. So what grade is he getting from the American people? How much has the border crisis hurt him? And what about his inauguration promise to unify the country? Dale Hurd has the details.
After almost 100 days, polling shows Joe Biden gets a higher approval rating than Donald Trump, but still one of the lowest at this point in any administration since World War II. Biden's 52% approval is much higher than Trump's 42%, but he's also received much more positive media coverage than Donald Trump. His handling of the COVID pandemic has the approval of 64% of Americans, but his handling of the border crisis has the disapproval of 53%. Over 172,000 migrants were stopped at the border last month, the most in 20 years.
I wish he'd talk about the crisis on the border, which he created. I mean, it is a crisis. I've been down there with Governor Ducey to see that he's created this crisis.
Vice President Kamala Harris claims the crisis has no quick solution.
It's not going to be solved overnight. It's a complex issue. Listen, if this were easy, it would have been handled years ago. If parents and if children cannot literally eat, if they cannot have the basic essential things that everyone needs to live, of course they're going to flee, and that's what we're saying.
By a 2-to-1 margin, Americans believe Biden should make major changes to his proposals to have bipartisan Republican support. But he passed the COVID relief bill without GOP support and suggested he might do the same with his $2.3 trillion infrastructure bill. And he signed 40 executive orders, the highest of any recent president. Republican Senator Rand Paul says he's still waiting on the promise of unity Biden made at his inauguration.
I haven't seen any of that. I think what I've seen so far is it's Biden's way or the highway. I don't see anything that looks like they want to work together.
Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin says he doesn't support the administration's huge infrastructure plan. He's calling for billions in non-infrastructure spending to be taken out. Some Democrats say he's standing in the way of the president's agenda.
I'm not a roadblock at all. The best politics is good government. I am not going to be part of blowing up this Senate of ours, or basically this democracy of ours, or the republic that we have.
Meanwhile, Biden is expanding government and increasing spending at a record pace. The U.S. government spent over $900 billion in March alone, more than double from 1 year ago. Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the Biden administration has exceeded expectations of so-called progressives.
The active invitation and willingness and collaboration with progressives in his first 100 days, or almost 100 days, has been very impressive.
In his speech to Congress, Biden is expected to announce a $1.8 trillion package funding education, child care, and paid family leave, along with more tax hikes. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, don't blame me. I didn't put him in office. So you can, who are you going to blame? I mean, somebody did. I don't know what it was, but it was a crazy thing that went on. And now it's like, as I said before, it's like Charlie McCarthy sitting on Edgar Bergen's lap. Somebody is calling the shots. It's not the president. It's like we've got an empty suit in office, and we're wondering, where is the control? Who is controlling? Is it AOC? Is it the squad in the House? Is it Nancy Pelosi? I mean, who's doing it? And the thing that we got to remember is, they feel clearly, the Democrats, that they're going to lose control of the House of Representatives, and very possibly there'll be a couple of seats in the Senate that'll shift. So the control will leave them, and in the next presidential election, there will be another president. So they want to get everything in they possibly can and fix it so that the conservatives don't have a voice. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to still out your voice. We're going to talk more about what's being done with the IRS before the Supreme Court. But there's something else in the American news. I remember, well, this long overdue. That's how American Armenians responded to President Biden's historic statement regarding Turkey's genocide against the Armenians by the Ottoman Empire in 1915. The question is, how will Turkey respond? John Jessup has that.
That is right, Pat. For the first time, an American president officially has recognized the Armenian genocide from more than a century ago. As Chris Mitchell reports, while the announcement led to much jubilation, it also sparked condemnation from NATO ally Turkey.
For years, the White House recognized Armenian Remembrance Day while avoiding the term genocide, mainly to steer clear of potentially alienating Turkey, a NATO ally. But the White House statement said, each year on this day, we remember the lives of all those who died in the Ottoman-era Armenian genocide and recommit ourselves to preventing such an atrocity from ever again occurring. American Armenians hailed the decision they see as long overdue.
We worked very hard to see America recognize the Armenian genocide, and so this is a new beginning for us. I feel it's a new beginning for my children.
On Twitter, Turkey's foreign minister condemned the declaration, writing, "Words cannot change or rewrite history," and Turkey entirely rejects it. Beginning in April 1915, Ottoman authorities deported, massacred, or marched to death 1.5 million Armenians in the first mass extermination of the 20th century. Turkey doesn't deny the deaths from that era, yet refuses to call it genocide. The government maintains the death toll is inflated, and it all resulted from civil unrest. Here in Jerusalem's Old City, the Armenian Quarter reminds us of this community's rich Christian heritage. Still, constant reminders like this poster signify the scars and memories the genocide left on Armenians here in Jerusalem and around the world. During a ceremony in Armenia, Armenia's prime minister called Biden's statement a powerful step on the way to acknowledging the truth. The White House announcement will likely cast a chilling impact on U.S.-Turkish relations. Its foreign ministry said it would open a deep wound that undermines mutual trust and friendship, and Turkey summoned the U.S. ambassador to protest President Biden's decision. For now, though, Armenians worldwide feel an historic injustice is being righted.
You know, when you look at Ezekiel 38, you find an alliance coming against Israel, and they talk about Gog and Magog. Most of that is located in Turkey. And I think that Erdogan has taken over Constantinople and named it Istanbul, which means a city of Islam. He took over the Hagia Sophia, the great Christian church in Constantinople, and made it into a mosque. He is a radical Muslim, and he is a danger to those who love freedom. Now, CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is going to join us from Jerusalem. And Chris, how do you feel Turkey might respond to Biden's naming this episode in history as genocide?
Well, Pat, they may go in a few different directions. They may actually go more into the orbit of Russia and Iran. That would play into the scenario there in Ezekiel 38. But Turkey is still a NATO ally. And right now, actually, Erdogan might need Washington more than Washington needs Turkey. Obviously, right now, Turkish-U.S. relations are at a low ebb. You know, it took President Biden 3 months to call Erdogan. That's not a very good sign for Turkey. And then the news that he greeted Erdogan with was the recognition of the Armenian genocide. Obviously, that makes Erdogan very upset. But also geopolitically, the U.S. is upset at Erdogan. He's been fighting the Kurds in Syria. We've talked a lot about that about a year and a half ago. He's bullying Greece. He wants a greater Turkey. He's trying to push into northern Iraq. So what this does, it diminishes some of Turkey's prestige in the region. And also, you know, on U.S.-Turkish relations, the U.S. is angry at Turkey for buying Russia's S-400 missile defense system. And by the way, Pat, I was talking to some Armenians here in Jerusalem, and they really are grateful for this, but they say it's about time that the U.S. recognize this as a genocide 106 years later after it started.
Chris, there's an air base, Incirlik, in Turkey, U.S. air base, and I also understood that we have left several intermediate nuclear weapons in Turkey. Have we gotten those things out now, do you think?
Well, I think that was a point of discussion actually when Turkey invaded northeast Syria back in, I believe, October of 2019. That was a really point of contention, and it really kind of leaves the U.S. a little bit vulnerable to have those tactical nuclear weapons at that air base. And remains to be seen if they're going to try to get them out, where sometimes perhaps Erdogan could use them as leverage against the United States. But certainly right now, this puts Erdogan back on his heels just a bit, and we'll just see how this plays out geopolitically and prophetically, as you mentioned.
Chris, I have been unable to understand what's going on in Israel, and perhaps you can clarify it because I am totally baffled. What's the latest news in Jerusalem?
Well, Pat, I'm a bit baffled, too, and I think a lot of Israelis are baffled, and people that are watching Israel around the world. Right now, the latest is that Netanyahu has given Benny Gantz an offer that he says that, listen, you can be prime minister first, and we'll go in a rotation deal. You go for 1 year, I'll go for 2, and then you can go for the final year. Gantz has already rejected that. But Netanyahu may actually offer it to others. He may offer it to Naftali Bennett, Gideon Sa'ar. These are right-wing parties, Pat, that are actually in the opposition. Naturally a right-wing government, but actually they are personally don't want to serve in a Netanyahu government. He has only 8 days left to form a mandate, and it looks like President Rivlin is going to give the mandate to Yair Lapid, and he'll have 28 days to cobble together a government. So right now, Netanyahu hasn't been able to convince those right-wing parties to join him. In the meantime, Naftali Bennett is working on a unity government with the so-called change bloc. And so there's just so many machinations going on right now, Pat. It's hard to keep up day by day. Well, but believe it or not, still possibilities of a 5th election later this year.
Was he going to call a snap election where he might be taken out? I mean, instead of just going to the parliamentary system? Is that on the table?
What he wanted to do, Pat, was he wanted to have elections for prime minister. Now, he's the most popular candidate for prime minister, and he said, let's have a snap election for the prime minister. If he gets over 40% of the vote, he can serve as prime minister, and then we can go ahead and form a coalition government. That's going to be very hard to do given the current makeup of the Knesset, so we'll see what happens. But that was one possibility. It looks like that's really not going to happen for Netanyahu. It looks like he's not going to be able to form a government, but it remains to be seen if the so-called change bloc is going to be form a government as well. Just one more sign of instability, Pat, and certainly why people should be praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
You better believe it. Chris Mitchell, thank you from Jerusalem. Folks, just think about it. America is divided desperately, and we have, in my opinion, a very, very weak president. It's unlikely who really is running the show in Washington. And the Israelis, our dear friends, the best democracy in the Middle East, is now riven with confusion. And the Bible says a house divided can't stand, and we're both in trouble. So who could come in? Putin might want to do something with Russia. Erdogan might want to do something with Turkey. We're inviting, weakness invites danger. And weakness, the Reagan used to talk about peace through strength. Neither one of us are showing strength, and especially with the Chinese threatening Taiwan, the Chinese threatening the South China Sea, the Chinese doing everything to provide hegemony in the Far East. And what are we going to do? We are faced with major, major challenges. John?
Well, Pat, back here at home, the family of a man killed by police in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, is preparing to see police body cam video of the incident. County Sheriff's deputies shot and killed Andrew Brown last Wednesday as they sought to carry out an arrest warrant for felony drug charges. The chief deputy said Brown's past indicated he posed a danger, but the family's attorney said the sheriff's office told him Brown was unarmed.
Mr. Brown was a convicted felon with a history of resisting arrest.
Something was shared that there was no drugs or weapon involved.
The incident sparked protests, and city and state officials are now calling for investigations. 7 Pasquotank County deputies are on administrative leave. The sheriff, mayor, and city council, as well as North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, all are calling for the release of the body cam footage, which requires a judge's approval. A family attorney expects the judge to approve that request today. Well, a diverse collection of interest groups at the Supreme Court today, Christians and Muslim organizations joining the pro-gay human rights campaign, among others. The reason? To fight a California law demanding nonprofits disclose their major donor lists. The state argues it needs the names to determine if a charity is misusing its assets. The nonprofits say donors are entitled to their privacy, particularly since taking a stand on issues like abortion, religious liberties, and gay and transgender rights can bring harmful social media backlash, including the posting of private information like home addresses, places of business, even children's names and images. California says it can protect the information, but groups argue databases can be hacked and information can be leaked.
There is no question that left-wing groups will use it against conservatives to silence them. I mean, imagine if the donors to a conservative charity are suddenly pilloried and their names are put out in social media. What are they going to do with their money? They're not going to give it any longer. The same thing with left-wing groups. If they are put out and they say, are you realizing that this charity is getting its money from the LGBTQ organization? You're not going to give them money anymore. And to cut off the source of funding is the way to kill one of these charities. So I do hope the Supreme Court will come down on the side of reason on that one and say, no, you can't force charities to give up their important proprietary information.